All right, it is 9:39 a.m. There was an attempt to buy CYDY, but it had some really ugly high spread price action. If CYDY traded it better, I would have given it money, and this would have been profitable. But that's fine. Some trades are just not going to happen because the stock trades like trash. Look at this. I did try to buy 1,000 shares at 9:35 right here, and I was trying to buy with my limit as high as 17.5 because it looked like, just looking at the price action, it was trying to turn around, not necessarily breaking past the downtrending trend line until later, just by looking at the price action. And I do like how it was trying so hard to hold above 17, and then we briefly broke under it right here, but it wasn't able to continue going down. It was just something where maybe it got to 17, it breaks it, and then we have some more sellers wiped out, and then it actually turns around. So I did try to buy some here at 9:35, but what happened was is that the bid and the ask just jumped. Like the ask went up as high as 18, and I wasn't going to take a trade, and buy at 18 when the last tick was at 17. So that just seems like too much of a wide spread. And then it did start to uptrend a little more, and I didn't like it because again, somebody did hit, I think very close to the ask at 17.9, and then it sold off, and then it kind of opened right here, and maybe it could have entered at 17.5, but this one traded ugly. If it traded better than this, I would have been able to have been long and more profitable, but that's fine. It's not necessarily at a very significant point when you look at a daily chart, other than the fact that it broke the year low, so that could be the reason why it wiped out. All of those people holding and all that selling happened for a reversal, but this is ugly. So unfortunately, it just didn't trade clean, but that's all right. There isn't anything else that I'm interested in. I'm still looking for setups, but if it just seems like there are no setups today, which is fine because it is like the holidays and everything, I'll just call it off early and get back to work. Otherwise, yeah, it did in theory work out. Just really ugly the way it traded. All right, it is 10:13. I had another trade with LWLG. This one was a bit of a reversal long setup. It's not like it was trading off of a trend line or anything like that. It wasn't something where maybe it breaks under a round number like here $5 just briefly and then it turns around. This is actually just looking at a setup because it looked like it was trying to turn around. I did buy 100 shares at 10.07. This is a listed stock, but it used to be an OTC. It still kind of trades like an OTC, so I traded, in theory, to me, $100 risk level, which would have been my entry here at 10.07, right here at 489, thinking worst case scenario, we break the day low, it has a big panic, and then there's slippage, and then I try to place an order, and then I have to cancel it, try again, and then I thought worst case amount at $4, which is a bit extreme. I think with more experience, I can be able to raise my worst case scenario maybe to like 450, and then I would have had 200 shares here. But anyway, I did have 100 shares at 489 right here, thinking that it was trying to turn around. And I do like how I had a lot of volume here, had volume here, and then we just briefly broke this level right here, but it wasn't able to go that much further down. So kind of similar to a lot of setups. I think the other one that I traded, or at least try to trade today with CYDY. So that's why I was in it. And then when it was starting to uptrend and everything, especially when it jumped on air at this point, I did try to sell some at 495, and this thing trolled me. It only got like 2 shares executed, and that was me trying to sell half of my position so that, as uptrend and everything, and I can sell half, and then I can hold on to the rest, and maybe I was risking parts of the trend line breaking down, and ultimately the day low, if it was going to maybe break under the trend line, but it looks like it might immediately continue the uptrend or something like that. My risk goal was really that trend line. And yeah, when it just had 2 shares executed and it was showing some topping price action, I did sell the rest at 10.12, which was right here at 492.87, so almost 493. Now, what this thing can do now is be an inverse head and shoulders, shoulder, head, shoulder right here, maybe even a new entry at 493, risking the bottom of the wick of 489. If it doesn't work out, I mean, you're at like $5 with 100 shares. whoop-de-doo. And, best case scenario, it uptrends, it gets to VWAP, which is also around the $5 level. And it looks like it's already trying to do that. So maybe I shouldn't have been recording and trading it. No, that's fine. I wanted to be in for this turnaround, and we hit a roadblock, and I sold. That's pretty much summarizes what this trade is. And I'll make an update as to what it does later. I don't think I'm going to trade anything else today. There isn't really anything interesting to look at. It is kind of like a last case scenario if I'm looking at LWLG or LKNCY for setups. There isn't much going on, but I'm happy I was able to take part of this and not hesitate and miss out. That's all I have for right now. Alright, it is 10:59. I will be interested in this, but I am kind of thrown off with this seller at the ask at 480, and I have already been starting to do other things. I just took a quick look, and I like how this thing is actually trying to break above the trend line. I like how it broke past it right here, but it didn't really uptrend all that much, but then it sold off, and then it went back to the trend line, but not under it like it was for the entire day for the most part. So this could be something where I would consider a setup. I just don't like the big seller here at 480, and sometimes when stocks are really far away from VWAP, it never really gets there, but this one could always work out. So I'll keep looking at this. Maybe I'll miss out on this setup just because I start to do other things. But I like it so far, especially how, again, it's broken out of the trend line and then downtrended. And now it's touching it, sure, or it's above it. It's not under it like it was before. Alright, it is 11:19 p.m. and I'm here to call it off. Overall, I'm going to be up on a day, $3.91. Just 1 penny more than the other day, and that was trading LWLG for a reversal long setup. And looking at the chart now, it does kind of stink, but it did ultimately do a turnaround. I was watching it, and I think the last recording I made was when it was trading around this 480 level, and I didn't like the big seller at the ask. It did have one more sell off, and I stopped looking at it because again, I liked how it's broke past this trend line and then it sold off, right? But then we had that big seller at 480, I believe. And then it started the downtrend again, and I was just one dip off from the ultimate bottom. It did do one more downtrend, and it did get under the trend line, and then even had an excessive wick right here. And that's when it ultimately turned around. So let me see if I can draw a trend line here now that the chart looks a lot better because it's traded the entire day at this point. It's kind of hard to do it exactly the way I had it the other chart, something like that. Not exactly, it's just a guideline. It did do it. It broke past it, and then it downtrended, and then it got way under it again, and then that's when it started to turn around. Would have been kind of hard to buy this, but I've seen this happen where it just jumps on air, and I don't want to take the setup, and then actually is when it turns around, and that's why I jumped on air. But it did eventually make a move from the, I guess, maybe right here, 475, and then it did get as high as the 490s, almost 5. So that was the move ultimately that worked out. Nothing really interesting with the other OTCs, although GTII is trying to do an uptrend. Maybe this can be something where I think the high today is what, like $1.08. So maybe tomorrow if it opens at $1 and then it breaks $1.08, or maybe it's closer to $1.08 and it breaks that previous day high. Maybe that can be a pretty nice setup to be a part of in the morning. There was a big move with this one. Very crazy one. It did sell off, but I don't really see a point where I would have really have considered a buy. Maybe something like a trend line from here to here. Yeah, I mean, unless you wanted to be risky and buy when it's still under the trend line. Kind of like how I was with LWLG. There isn't really like a very clean way to have considered a setup here. It just did a nice downtrend towards the bottom. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Just that one trade with LWLG. I was one dip off from the ultimate bounce, and I'm glad it worked out. I'm glad it did offer a setup even if I wasn't in it. That's it for today.